Hello and welcome back to another Sky Sports Fantasy Football Game Week preview. This week we're looking ahead to Game Week 9, and of course, as it is Tuesday and it is a double game week within Game Week 28, we do still have a couple of games to look at. So tonight's game we have Man City versus Brentford, and Wednesday we have Liverpool versus Luton. So just to we will talk over those a little bit today. But before we do that, you can see just below, finally I've got a nice big green arrow to celebrate. I'm now sitting at 4,200, which is nearly about half my rank from last week. I think it was about 7,900 or so, and you can see just how well I've done in both teams with the weekly result there, sitting at 673rd and 422nd for the week. So two big game weeks for me in both teams, and I've kind of brought my second team right back into it. Not for a great rank, it is still doing pretty poorly, but like a respectable one, not something that I should just throw away. So now I'm more invested in both those teams. But my first team is definitely back in it for like a decent top 1,000 finish. You can see I've still got 26 transfers to use in there. But anyways, looking at Game Week 28, I think by the time this video starts, there's not really going to be any time, or by the time this video comes out, there's not really going to be any time to make any changes for the City and Brentford game. I don't really think there's any real need to, unless you maybe want to bring in Ivan Toney tonight. I don't really think you want to be bringing in any City players with the amount of captaincies that there is coming up. And obviously I think if you've got City players, or if you want City players, you would have brought them in a few weeks ago anyway. But the main thing is the Liverpool and Luton game on Wednesday the 21st. Of course, we do have some news that a couple of the Liverpool attackers could be out for this game. Again, we get to see the lineup, so that's no real big deal. The likes of Jota has been confirmed that he will be out for a couple of months, and then Salah and Nunes were also both doubts as well. But again, we get to see the lineup, so we can make our decisions then. For me personally, I would love to bring in Salah tomorrow. That has been the plan. You'd have known that from last week's Game Week preview. I really do want to bring Salah in. But if he is obviously not going to be starting, I probably won't be doing that. I do think if Salah's on the bench, then you probably want to wait a couple more weeks until you bring him in. The likes of Toney has like a 5-for-2 over Liverpool. We will look at it when we look at the fixture gains. But like Toney has a 5-for-2 over Liverpool when they play Nottingham Forest and Man City. So unless Salah scores a hat-trick against Nottingham Forest away from home, I think Toney should easily outscore him in those 5 games, and I think that might include a captaincy as well. So looking at what we are all here for, that is Game Week 29. We do have our average remaining transfers now, and they are finally starting to drop a bit. We do have the top 10 now dropping to 14.2. I think it's definitely a bit of a difference, as last week the average remaining transfers ended up going up. This week they are down a bit. Again, not really much of a change, but we are looking at 0.5 on the averages, coming down for the top 100, top 1,000 and top 5,000. So again, if you're sitting about the top 5,000 right now, not really sure about your rank, you know that the average transfers remaining within those ranks is 17, so maybe you're sitting on about 24, 23 I think seems to be about the average right now, maybe a bit more than that. You should know you're in a perfectly good position to start using those transfers and climb the ranks towards the end of the season. So for our transfers this week then, we're starting to see some of the more popular players come back into it, with Mo Salah and Haaland leading the way in terms of the transfers in. Again, I'd imagine it's more of the casual player base that's bringing Salah in, because we did get to see the Saturday lineups and Salah was on the bench. Obviously it did work out for those who brought him in, because he did end up getting a goal and an assist there, but hopefully again we can see more information on him tomorrow and whether he'll play or not. Haaland obviously starting to come back in now after his injury, not really been too great, so if you've held off on him, then you've probably been doing quite well, because of the amount of strikers that are doing so good. For example, Højlund, who is also the third highest transfer in now. He is someone we spoke about the last 2 weeks in game week previews, saying how good an asset that he could be, and in terms of captaincies as well. I did speak about him being a captaincy on Sunday as well. I made the move in my second team and took out Solanke for him. captained him, and again worked out very well. Ended up with about 30 points from him, and again another reason why my weekly rank is so high in the second team. I do wish I'd done it in my first team though, otherwise I would generally be flying in that first team right now, but I didn't. We've also got Romero and Onana, two players I didn't really expect to see in there. I'd imagine it's because you can see Porro and Alisson are top of the transfers out list. So for Porro, maybe people are just moving to the next best Spurs defender, and with Alisson being there, people are just moving to Onana. Again, I wouldn't think Onana right now at this point is the best goalkeeper to go for. Obviously, we've got people interested in the likes of Raya. Pickford was a popular one last night for the captaincy. We've also got Neto and Sa as possible captains coming up as well. Obviously, with Raya, you do have that Brentford game coming up for Arsenal, and he's not going to be able to play in that game because he is obviously on loan from there. So if you are planning on getting Raya in, make sure you do it after that Brentford game. And then we've also got Trent in there, we've got Bowen in there, and Alvarez in there. Obviously Trent is injured again. Jared Bowen's not really been performing, and Alvarez I imagine is most people's replacement for Haaland, or that's how people are taking out for Haaland. Obviously there's a lot of strikers right now who are doing really well, the likes of Solanke and Watkins and Tony, and a lot more than that as well, so explains why people are taking Alvarez out. So next up we're looking at captaincies. Then we obviously have Erling Haaland again on Saturday. He is just the base captaincy pick. He is playing against Bournemouth, a team who obviously has been in pretty decent form. Haaland hasn't been in fantastic form, so again if we always have our differential pick here, so if you are looking for someone and you're not really feeling Haaland, I think Højlund could be a great option. Again, playing against Fulham at home, a team who's ranked I think 5th is the most expected goals conceded in the Premier League this season. So I think it could be easily another game where Højlund pops off again. Next up we have Sunday, which is our single game day with Wolves and Sheffield United, and I really do think it is a 50-50 between who you want to go here, between Neto and Hwang. If we do look at this was from Fantasypedia on Twitter. It does show you the chances conceded by Sheffield, and it does actually favour Neto in terms of most chances conceded down the wings, but of course Hwang technically is the goal scorer in the team. Hwang is going to take the penalties. Hwang's going to get the more explosive points. I think if anyone's going to score like a hat-trick in this game, it's going to be Hwang, whereas Neto I think is more better for like the odd assist. I think if you're looking for someone who's definitely going to get points, maybe between like 5 and 10, I'd be looking at Neto, but if you're looking for someone who's going to score like 15, I'd be looking towards Hwang. So I do really think it is just a genuine 50-50 and something that you're probably going to have to decide right at that time. And then Monday we've got West Ham versus Brentford. I think for this game, of course, we were all considering Bowen at the overhaul, but with the form that West Ham are in is absolutely terrible, and I think it could be an opportunity for someone like Tony to do quite well in that game. So for me, he would be the pick. Obviously it's another striker spot, so if you're someone who has Watkins, Solanke and Haaland, it could be quite a difficult one. Again, we will take a look at it with the fixture gains and what kind of moves that we can make in order to get Tony in. So now looking at possible transfers. Unfortunately I lost the face cam for this section, but it shouldn't be too long anyway. Possible transfers out, we're looking at Declan Rice. Again, for me, when I was making this graphic, I didn't really feel like there was any good players to take out right now that we hadn't already taken out. Obviously you can see last week's picks there, that was the likes of Saka, Palmer and stuff like that after their games. Looked like decent moves out. So again, trying to look at this week, I think Rice was really the only the decent pick. Kind of looking at players who are just a bit more passive. Obviously Rice you're never going to captain. You've probably got another Arsenal player elsewhere, so he's one of these guys that you can kind of afford to get rid of. Obviously last week picks as well, I think if you've not got them out yet, then it's probably still a pretty decent time to do so. In terms of transfers in, again, looking at kind of the captains for this week, Salah obviously tomorrow, if he is going to be starting, you are going to want him in. 11.5 million, so if you can get to there in one transfer, brilliant. If it's going to take two, then I would be looking at getting like Neto and Tony in. Neto obviously much cheaper. If you're wanting Hwang, he is a little bit cheaper than Neto. I believe Hwang's 7.3, Neto's 7.6. So it really depends on your budget there. But definitely when you're making transfers, make sure to look at your future transfers so you know what kind of budget you've got available. Now we've got Ivan Toney in as well, someone who I do think would be a very, very nice captaincy for Monday. In terms of waiting on players, obviously still Heung-min Son. We were looking at him last week. Spurs just don't have that many that many games right now, and I'd be just waiting until about March for him. Then I've got Saka as well. Obviously, we were talking about taking him out last week, but he is in fantastic form, purely because he just doesn't have that many games right now compared to a lot of other teams. So, fantastic form. I think you want to wait until the Sheffield game to bring him back in, make sure he's your captain. I don't really think you're going to be able to cover with Saliba right now, especially with how many goals that Sheffield are leaking. So I would definitely be wanting Saka for there, and that's going to be early March time. So if you are someone who doesn't have him, I wouldn't get him in straight away. They've obviously played Newcastle next. I would wait till after that when they're playing Sheffield. So now we're going to take a look at our fixture gains as always. Again, as I was speaking previously about maybe missing out on Salah if he isn't going to start, you can see they just really don't have that many games. Obviously, if you play FPL as well, that you know they'll have a blank game week this week. Looking at the games like this, you can see 2 games in here for Liverpool, and as I was saying, 4 games here for Brentford with 5, which makes the captaincy, which makes the 5 for 2. You're looking at literally 5 games. For Bournemouth, 6 with the captaincy against Luton, so you're really looking at 6 for 2 in that. Again, another reason why I would probably leave Salah for now and then maybe bring him back in towards the end of March. Again, Wolves 4 games, 5 with the captaincy. Sheffield, I would ignore Sheffield, but 4 for Forest, 4 for Newcastle with the captaincy. 4 for United. Again, there's just a lot more fixtures for the other teams other than Mo Salah, but of course you're going to want him as your captaincy here against Luton, and you're probably going to want him as your captaincy here against Forest. So I wouldn't bring him in if you're just going to captain him against Forest and hold him for City. As I said, I do think like the likes of Tony will get more points in that time, but the captaincy against Luton and the captaincy against Forest are going to be very, very big. So if he starts, I'd be bringing him in and just leaving him, having those 3 games off of him. If he's on the bench, I think you probably just wait until the 17th of March to bring him in. In terms of bringing in Tony, again, a popular transfer I think could be Solanke to Tony. I wouldn't make that move now. Obviously, both of them are playing Man City, and I think the best kind of like a good habit to get into is just delaying a transfer as much as possible. I think if you can get away with basically let's consider this: you bring Tony in tonight and he gets injured against Man City, then you're missing out on Solanke against Bournemouth, and you're missing out on your captaincies. Whereas if you're just going to keep Solanke, you're missing out on Tony against Man City, but you get Solanke against City, and then you can bring him in when you see the lineups here for this West Ham game. So it's really just like a just in case he gets an injury kind of thing. I would just be waiting until this game here and getting him in then. Whether you think it's going to be worth it to bring Tony in for 2 games, and then I would definitely want to move back to Solanke for these games, because Burnley, Sheffield and Luton are very, very nice games for him. Whether it's worth it, it's up to you. I think it really depends on your transfer account. You could maybe get away with just avoiding it, or maybe going somewhere else, maybe for like Flecken and goals just to cover the captaincy. I don't think it's the best idea, but if you're looking to cover captaincies, it is always an option. But I think for most people, like, you're not going to want to get rid of Watkins. I think like we're considering this as the front 3 of most people's teams being Watkins, Solanke and Haaland. Haaland, I don't think you're going to want to take out, but at the same time, you're getting a 3 for 1 with Tony over Haaland, and you're just missing out on Haaland against Man United. So you're getting the captaincy again, technically a 4 for 1, moving Haaland on to get Tony in. Could be a better move than taking out Solanke. But again, if Haaland ends up bagging a hat-trick against Man United, you're going to be very disappointed with yourself. So yeah, a popular move is probably going to be keeping Solanke for the City game, moving on to Tony for these two, and then moving back to Solanke. So it's just whether you think you can get worthy of two transfers out of these two games for Ivan Toney against West Ham and Chelsea. In terms of just regular fixture gains this week, obviously we're gonna not include these Tuesday and Wednesday fixtures because we looked at them last week. But in terms of maybe taking someone out on Saturday for someone who plays on Sunday, there's really not that much available. Spurs obviously don't have too much going on. You can see Newcastle don't really have too much. Maybe if you're still holding Trippier, I'm still holding Trippier, hoping to move him on to Salah tomorrow, if that's available. But again, 3-for-1s here with Wolves moving on a Newcastle player onto a Wolves player could be quite good. I think a lot of us would have brought in the likes of Pickford yesterday, maybe an Everton defender. If you can, I'd have them for the Brighton game and then move them on to a Wolves player because I wouldn't want to keep them long term. And then maybe a Brighton player as well. I know a lot of people brought Brighton players in, and the likes of Garnacho as well. I'd just be moving them straight on to a Wolves player, keeping them for a little bit, and then moving them on afterwards, just to kind of cover those captaincies. We know how important covering the captaincies is. Fortunately, it didn't work out yesterday. If you brought really anyone in the Everton Palace game, it finished 1 each and just didn't really go well for anyone. So that's probably one of those ones that didn't really work out. But if you're looking at like a Wolves game against Sheffield United at home, it could possibly be a 3-4-0 scoreline, and you're definitely going to be wanting a Wolves attacker for that one. And then finally, wrapping things up, we're taking a look at the team here, and again, a fantastic week from me. You can see a couple transfers that were made, a couple punts, well, a punt, a big punt, and that was going for Adingra here in midfield, who picked up a 17-pointer. Fortunately, didn't captain him. I did go for Gross instead, but again, no real issues with that. Again, up to 4.2k in the world. Two transfers I made was bringing out Saliba and Palmer, and then I brought in Adingra and Van Heck. Reason I went for Adingra was literally just a last minute thing when I saw the Brighton lineups. I did put out a poll. I think it was maybe for about half an hour on who the best two-game punt would be, and it was Garnacho, Mitoma or Adingra. Garnacho had about 70% of the votes. I think like 20% went to Mitoma, and then Adingra was like 7 or 8% or something like that. Obviously that doesn't add up to 100, but that was roughly how it was looking. But for me, I just had that feeling that Adingra was going to do quite well. I was really feeling a Brighton player because of how bad Sheffield are. And it was one of those ones where another day it could have been the total opposite. Like Sheffield obviously picked up a red card. Garnacho had about 9 chances and never finished one of them, so it could have been a total opposite swing. I'd have been really, really annoyed with that, but quite happy. I did actually make the transfer in my second team as well as going for Højlund. So I done the two things as well. I went Saliba and Palmer to Van Heck and Adingra. I done Solanke to Højlund, captained them, went quite well, and I done Vicario to Pickford last night. So we are down to 21 transfers in this second team, but again, it's now at like a better rank than it was. But again, I'm just kind of having fun and picking random players in this team. But yeah, up to 4.2k, I think I'm in a pretty decent spot now to at least finish top 1,000 in what has been a very, very tough season for me. Where I really haven't had a decent rank at all season. So transfer wise, I would like to get Trippier out this week. I'm not going to do that. I would like to get Trippier out this week and bring Salah in, and then I'm going to take Adingra back out and go for either Neto or Hwang, whichever one I decide. And I'm probably going to make the Solanke to Tony transfer. Again, I've got 26 in this team. We've got maybe about two and a half months left until the end of the season. And I think 26 transfers is going to be absolutely plenty for that. So that's the plan. This week it's probably going to be 3 transfers. It's going to be Trippier, Adingra and Solanke for Salah, Neto or Hwang and Tony. In terms of Salah, if he isn't going to play, I'm just going to captain Van Dijk. Again, we can look at our captains now. Oh no, it doesn't really do anything because we've only got Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to captain Van Dijk and just not bring in a Liverpool player and just wait until Salah's back. I think, by the way, that Klopp's press conference went, Salah should be okay for tomorrow. So once we see the lineups, if Salah's starting, he's coming straight in for Trippier. Again, follow me on Twitter for any more updates or anything on this team, what the kind of plans we've got, and we can have a talk on there. But that is going to end off this video. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you're new, make sure to subscribe and make sure to leave a like as well. It's very, very much appreciated. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.